the next area that we need to discuss with students is the subtopic about membranes. Actually, membranes is actually a part of the structures that is being discussed in the previous topics in prokaryotic cells and eukaryotic cells. But we can also elaborate to the students, we can tell the students that we can further discuss this area, okay, in this separate topic. So here in membranes, okay, the most important thing that we need to discuss here is to relate the structure with the function. So by relating the structure to its function, then the students would be able to understand how the movement of substances is occurring in membranes. So here in membranes, we need to discuss the structures or the components that are present in membranes. Okay, for example, in the case of, we have the phospholipid bilayer. We have to discuss why is it arranged into a bilayer. Okay, we should also discuss as well the chemical structure of a phospholipid. So phospholipid is actually made up of a combination of a glycerol group. We have the fatty acid chain, and one of the features that is present in a phospholipid is the presence of the phosphate group attached to the glycerol group. So by having the phosphate group in the glycerol, then it allows, or it gives the property of the phospholipid bilayer in becoming in being hydrophilic. Okay, so we need to write down their functions as well. Okay, so in the case of another structure, we have, let's just say an example, structures present in phospholipid. We have the membrane proteins. Okay, membrane proteins, since there are different types of this, we need to elaborate the function of each. For example, we have the membrane protein called channel proteins. Okay, channel proteins, the function of this is that it allows diffusion, easy diffusion of substances from a higher concentration to a lower concentration. But in the case of a pump protein, since it's called pump, then it needs energy to move substances from a lower concentration to a higher concentration. So we need to relate the structure with the function as well. So another thing that we need to take note of is the properties, okay, of phospholipids. Okay, as I've mentioned a while ago, that by discussing the chemical structure of phospholipids, we will be able to pinpoint the reason why the structures are, the phospholipid are hydrophilic and hydrophobic. Okay? So by having this properties, hydrophilic and hydrophobic properties, then we can come to a conclusion that the cell membrane or the plasma membrane as a whole is a semi-permeable membrane that only allows certain substances to enter the cell or exit the cell. Okay? So the next area that we need to discuss about membranes are the movement of substances. Okay, substances such as solutes, okay, or nutrients, substances through membranes. So we will discuss the things about diffusion, osmosis, active transport, facility to diffusion, and of course we also need to differentiate the differences between diffusion, simple diffusion, and facilitated diffusion. Okay, so So we also need to discuss about bulk transport. So in this case, this entails the transport of substances that are in greater amount. For example, if the cell is producing a specific protein, then we need the cell needs to use vesicles or sacs that is being produced by the membrane-bound organelles such as the Golgi apparatus and the rough ER, and then they are being moved out through exocytosis. So the next part is, of course, the transport of materials. So through the transport of materials, actually we can also relate this transport of materials in the previous area or the previous point that we have discussed, use of vesicles. So since we have already lined out all the things that is needed to be remembered by students in this area of cells, then we might be able to encompass the things that is needed to be discussed.